3 months after a roofing company rejected 900 cedar shakes, its owner stood beneath a leaking pavilion roof and asked Eli Zook a question he never expected to ask. "Can you bring back the bad ones?" Rainwater dripped from the edge behind him. A wedding was scheduled at the lodge in 9 days. The replacement roofing material had arrived in the wrong color, and the old roof had already been removed. Eli looked at the exposed structure, then at the sample shake in his hand. The cedar was rough, narrow at one end, and darker than the commercial bundles stacked nearby. It came from the load the company had called unusable. Why had Eli accepted all 900 pieces? Why did the first test roof he built leak in 7 places? And what did he learn from a single drop of water that appeared 6 feet away from the actual mistake? If you enjoy stories about careful work defeating quick judgment, subscribe now. Stay to the end, because Eli did not prove that every rejected shake belonged on a roof. He proved something more important. The story began at Keystone Ridge Roofing's storage yard on an April morning. Eli was 46 years old, compact, strong, and quiet. He built barns, porches, woodsheds, and small farm buildings across southern Pennsylvania. He worked with his brother-in-law Samuel and 2 younger carpenters named David and Aaron. Eli's father had taught him to lay cedar shakes on a calf shed when he was 14. The first row looked straight. The second row looked better. Then Eli placed 2 joints directly above one another. His father poured a cup of water over the spot. Water reached the boards below almost immediately. "A roof is not what you see from the road," his father said. "A roof is the path water cannot find." Eli remembered that sentence whenever a roof looked beautiful too quickly. Keystone Ridge had ordered cedar shakes for a group of expensive vacation cottages. The architect wanted uniform color and clean edges. When the bundles arrived, 900 pieces failed the company's appearance standard. Some were darker, some had wavy grain, some were slightly narrower than the approved pattern. 76 had split ends. Others were thicker on one edge and would slow the nail gun crew. The supplier offered a partial credit, but did not want the return freight. The shakes occupied 4 pallets needed for another job. Company owner Grant Wallace called 2 discount material dealers. Neither wanted to sort them. Eli was at the yard buying flashing for a barn when he saw the rejected load. He lifted one shake and bent it gently. The wood felt dry and firm. Its color was uneven, but the grain ran straight from end to end. Grant watched him. "Take the whole load and I will give you the pallets too," he said. Rick Nolan, the crew supervisor, laughed. "Bring buckets," Rick said. "You will need them under the roof." Eli asked why each bundle had been rejected. Grant pointed toward the dark color and rough edges. "Our crew cannot spend all day choosing pieces. The cottages need to match." That answer mattered. The shakes had not all failed a strength test. They had failed a commercial system that depended on speed and uniform appearance. Eli agreed to take every pallet. Back at the farm, he did not place the cedar directly on a building. He built a sorting rack. Each shake passed through 4 questions. Sorting the load took 10 working days. Eli set the rack near the open barn door so morning light crossed each piece from the side. A split that disappeared in flat light often opened as a dark line when the shake was turned. He flexed each piece gently, measured the thin end, and marked its usable exposure in pencil. Aaron recorded the result before placing it in a numbered stack. The rejected pile remained separate and clearly marked. Eli did not want a helper, tired near sunset, to return a doubtful piece to a roofing stack. By the 3rd day, the yard no longer held one random load. It held groups with known thickness, width, grain direction, and purpose. That difference was invisible from the road, but it would decide whether the cedar became a roof, a wall, or firewood. Was the grain straight enough to resist splitting? Was the butt thick enough for its intended exposure? Did a crack extend into the fastening area? Was the wood clean and free from decay? The answer created separate stacks. Sound roofing shakes went to one side. Short but solid pieces went to a siding stack. Split ends were cut back for small covers and trim. Pieces with deep defects were marked for non-building uses or proper disposal. Samuel counted 712 shakes that appeared suitable for a roof after trimming and grading. Eli still did not trust appearance alone. He built a small test roof over a frame behind the shop. It was 8 feet wide, with plywood, a weather barrier, battens, and 3 rows of shakes. He mixed the different thicknesses because he wanted to see how they behaved together. The roof looked rustic and strong. Rick Nolan stopped during lunch and took a photograph. "At least the chickens will stay dry," he joked. That afternoon, Eli ran water across the roof from a perforated pipe. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Then one drop appeared beneath the left side. Another appeared near the center. Within 20 minutes, 7 wet marks spread across the underside. Rick's photograph traveled through the roofing crew before sunset. The rejected shakes had become a joke again. Eli removed the wet rows one piece at a time. The first visible drop had appeared far from the first mistake. Water entered beside a thick shake, moved sideways along the top of a thinner one, then followed a batten until gravity pulled it down 6 feet away. The roof leaked because Eli had treated different thicknesses as if they created the same water path. Several shakes were also installed with the bark side facing the wrong direction. As they absorbed water, their edges lifted instead of tightening toward the roof. Eli made 2 wooden gauges. One measured thickness, the other measured exposure, the amount of each shake left visible below the row above it. Thick and thin pieces went into separate roof sections. Joints were offset carefully. Narrow pieces were paired where the next layer covered them fully. Every shake received space to move without opening a direct path for water. He also installed a better drainage layer beneath the cedar. A roof should not depend on one perfect outer surface. Good construction assumes wind-driven rain may pass the first line and gives that water a safe way out. The second test roof faced water for 2 hours. The underside stayed dry. Eli left it outside through 3 spring storms. Then he removed sections to inspect the hidden layers. No trapped moisture appeared. The water test solved only half the problem. During the third storm, wind lifted 2 shakes along the right edge. They did not tear free, but their butts rattled against the row below. Eli climbed onto the test frame after the weather passed and found that both pieces were among the narrowest in the load. He had fastened them with the same 2-nail pattern used on wider shakes. The nails held, but too much of each narrow piece remained unsupported at the edge. Eli built a small wind box from an old barn fan and a sheet metal duct. It was not a laboratory, and he did not pretend it was. It simply allowed him to compare installation patterns before placing them over someone's property. He tested wide shakes, narrow shakes, paired narrow shakes, and pieces trimmed around old splits. The strongest pattern did not use more nails everywhere. Extra fasteners sometimes created new splitting points. The better answer was correct overlap, sound fastening areas, and placing narrow pieces where neighboring shakes protected their edges. Aaron, the youngest carpenter, asked why they were spending hours testing material that had cost nothing. Eli pointed to the wet ground beneath the frame. "The cedar was free," he said. "The roof below it will not be." That sentence became the rule for the whole load. The crew also found 3 kinds of old metal mixed among the pallet bands. Ordinary bright nails left dark streaks after cedar became wet. Cedar contains natural compounds that can react with unsuitable metal. Eli chose fasteners rated for cedar exposure and tested them on scrap pieces before continuing. Samuel kept a written count. Of the 900 original shakes, 188 could not serve as full roofing pieces. 76 had split ends. 41 contained weak grain in the fastening area. The rest were too short, too thin, or too irregular for the planned exposure. That did not make all 188 worthless. After damaged sections were removed, many became siding, trim, ventilation covers, or small weather caps. But Eli drew a thick line in the ledger between a roof shake and a useful piece of cedar. He would not move a piece across that line because a deadline became uncomfortable. His caution frustrated his first customer. Daniel Fisher wanted the maple sugar shelter completed before a community gathering. When Eli rejected 34 shakes during installation, Daniel asked why he could not simply place the rough pieces on the back slope where no visitor would see them. "Rain sees the back," Eli said. The shelter opened 2 days later than planned. Then a storm brought an hour of wind-driven rain. Families stood beneath the cedar roof while steam rose from the evaporator. No water reached the firewood, the benches, or the stacked sap buckets. Daniel never complained about the delay again. That was when he allowed the cedar onto a real structure. His first project was an open woodshed on his own property. The second was a small maple sugar shelter. The third was a porch roof for a neighbor who liked the uneven color. Eli kept the soundest roof-grade shakes for water protection. Short pieces became ventilated siding. Narrow pieces covered birdhouse roofs and toolboxes. He never used a cracked fastening area merely to increase his count. Grant Wallace visited the sugar shelter in May. Sunlight crossed the different cedar tones. The roof did not look uniform. It looked handmade. "Our architect would reject the color," Grant said. "Then it is not his roof," Eli replied. Grant pressed one shake with his thumb. "Still dry underneath?" Eli lifted an inspection panel and showed him. The battens were dry. Air moved beneath the cedar. Grant said nothing. If you have ever seen a good material fail because it was used in the wrong system, subscribe to the channel. Eli's test roof had found the weakness, but the rejected load had not yet faced the job that would prove its value. In June, Keystone Ridge Roofing accepted a high-profile contract at Willow Creek Lodge. The lodge hosted weddings and business retreats. Its central pavilion had a cedar roof visible from every guest room. The old shakes were removed on Monday. New material was supposed to arrive Tuesday. The truck came Thursday. The color was wrong. Instead of weathered brown cedar, the bundles were pale yellow and machine-cut. The lodge manager rejected them. A wedding for 160 guests was 9 days away. Then a thunderstorm crossed the county. Temporary coverings tore along one edge, and water reached the pavilion floor. Grant Wallace remembered Eli's uneven roof. That was why he asked for the bad shakes back. Eli inspected the pavilion before answering. The roof required more than 700 shakes, depending on spacing and overlap. He had only 480 roof-grade pieces left from the rejected load. The rest had already been used or assigned. "It is not enough for the whole roof," Eli said. Grant looked toward the wet floor. "Then we have no answer." Eli did have an answer, but it was not the dramatic shortcut Grant wanted. The roof could be divided into visible lower sections and less visible upper sections. The old darker shakes could cover the areas guests saw from the courtyard. Approved new cedar from a local supplier could cover the upper rear slope. Both sections would use the same drainage design and carefully controlled exposure. The lodge manager accepted the plan after seeing Eli's test records and the sugar shelter. Work began the next morning. Rick Nolan joined Eli on the roof. This time he used the wooden thickness gauge instead of a nail gun set to one fast pace. Each row was checked before the next covered it. "This is slower," Rick said. "Yes, but the pattern looks better." "Dry looks better," Eli answered. The crew finished one day before the wedding. Rain arrived that night. Grant entered the pavilion at 5 the next morning with a flashlight. The floor was dry. The hidden drainage points were dry. No bucket stood beneath the roof. Guests later photographed the pavilion because the lower cedar carried shades of brown, silver, and red. No one knew the most visible shakes had once been rejected for failing to match. Keystone Ridge paid Eli for the graded material and his design work. Grant also changed the company's receiving process. Future rejected bundles would be separated by structural defect and appearance defect instead of being treated as one category. Rick returned the photograph of Eli's leaking test roof. "You want me to delete this?" he asked. "No," Eli said. "That roof taught us where the water went." The 900 shakes were never magically perfect. Some belonged on roofs, some belonged on walls, some only offered short pieces after damage was removed. Eli's skill was not making every piece equal. It was refusing to confuse uneven with useless. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for the next one. Because the strongest roof is not built by hiding every flaw. It is built by understanding exactly where each piece can be trusted.